Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
That's what I'm talking about. Man, I am getting ripped. Delaney's okay, Taryn Langley.
Justifiably so.
For what I was wearing
Yeah, I know.
on Friday night at BC Place. I guess I overdressed.
You did overdress, and I got people ripping my shoes. Beautiful shoes.
No, the shoes were great. You didn't have the laces done up.
I didn't have the laces. The things that people pick out on pictures is amazing to me.
Yeah. We'll survive. Today's guests, including Ross Tucker, brought to you by the Bayside Oceanfront Resort. Book your next corporate or private event at the Bayside in Parksville, whether it's a small, intimate event or a large gathering of up to 100 guests, all of them with their laces done up. The Bayside is ready to accommodate. Choose from their extensive banquet menu created by their talented chef with focus on fresh, seasonal ingredients. Call 250-248-8333 or visit BaysideResortParksville.com. Joining us now from the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, CBS Sports and Westwood One, it's Ross Tucker. Ross, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
Of course, my pleasure. I like that we can be flexible. Maybe we even have a new audience, although everybody should be listening every single day or watching the whole 2 hours. But I'm ready to roll. Let's do it.
Seahawks, Monday Night Football. Seahawks over the Giants 24-3. 2 sacks, 97-yard pick six. And what does Seattle have in Devin Witherspoon?
One of the best young corners in the NFL. I mean, that was crazy impressive. I think the guy was banged up and didn't even participate in much of training camp. And now here he comes out in his fourth game and was the best player on the field. Just truly impressive. I know a lot of people were surprised when the Seahawks took him as high as they did. You know, you don't often see a 5'11", 6 foot, 185-pound corner be a top 6 pick in the NFL draft, but they evidently saw something special, and guess what? They were right. I mean, that was awesome last night. I will say this. He needs to keep his head up and see what he hits. I didn't like the way he ducked his head on that one hit. That's a great way to get a concussion or to hurt your neck, so hopefully he'll get coached up on that. But, I mean, he is a striker. He's willing to be physical. He likes to be physical. He's a terrific blitzer. He's good in coverage. He can play outside. He can play in the nickel. He had a pick six. I mean, he's just a baller. The guy's a straight-up baller.
Something a little bit different here, Ross. Jamal Adams, first game in over a year. He suffers a head injury early, placed in concussion protocol, a game over. He was seen on the sidelines yelling at an NFL doctor. Can you understand what he was going through?
Of course. Yeah, I mean, look, it had been so long since he got a chance to play. He had spent so much time and effort to work himself back to get out there on the field. He's back in New York where he played for the Jets. It's a Monday night. It's a big stage. And a few plays into the game, he takes a Daniel Jones knee to the head, and he was concussed. And look, the way the NFL is now, guys, if you're showing visible signs of impairment, they're not putting you back in the game. Not after what happened with Tua Tagovailoa last year. Yeah. And they shouldn't. I mean, multiple times he was showing issues, and I think we all would have been outraged if he went back into that game. He was frustrated. I get it. He probably should be frustrated. But in that instance, then have better tackling technique on Daniel Jones than just diving head first and taking a knee to the side of the head. He'll be in the protocol. Hopefully he'll get out of it soon and be able to get back on the field. But sure, I mean, I think any guy that's ever come back from an injury, any guy that loves the sport can understand, you know, the frustration that Jamal had, but they obviously did the right thing.
Ross, what a mess the Bears are. They bench receiver Chase Claypool, a local kid, by the way. He criticized the coaching staff for not using him properly. Now he's not going to play this week. Is that the right call?
Well, I don't know what else is going on behind the scenes, but that's turning out to be one of the worst trades I can ever remember.
Yeah.
I mean, even last year I thought it was curious, guys, that they traded a second-round pick, which we knew at the time would probably be a high second-round pick, for a receiver that had a year and a half left on his contract. I mean, it was midway through his third year. So he only had a year and a half left on his contract. Now, people said, oh, they'll give him an extension. They'll get him signed. Now they don't even want to sign him. I mean, and because of the sanctions against the Dolphins, it ended up being the 32nd pick in the draft. Ended up being the equivalent of a first-round pick for a year and a half of a receiver that doesn't even play for them anymore. And I think the fact that the Steelers were so eager to move on from him, I think was telling. There's just something a little bit off about Chase and the way he goes about his business. I'm not quite sure what it is, but you can't say that. I mean, and this is his fourth year. He's not a rookie. It's not his second year. This is his fourth year. So for him to say no when he's asked that question, I don't know what he's thinking, because right now it feels like he's sabotaging his own career, unfortunately.
Ross, the Patriots hammered by the Cowboys. Bill Belichick's worst loss in 23 years. A lot of people are saying he should drop the GM title. Are you there with that, or should he keep it?
Well, he absolutely has not done a good job with the personnel. I don't know if he'll do that, though. I think he'd probably rather just retire than do that. But he also cares very much about the history of the game and his legacy, no matter what else he would tell you. I can't imagine him not coaching until he passes Don Shula for the all-time wins record. So if he needs to drop the GM title in order to do that, then he'll do that. But the reality is, if he does that, I can't imagine that they'd really bring in a quote-unquote outsider. To me, it feels like they would bring back Scott Pioli or someone that's been there before and say, okay, now he's in charge of the personnel. Belichick isn't anymore. But it would still primarily be Belichick's decisions.
Bills over Miami, 48-20. And Ross, I'm watching that game Sunday morning. It looked like it may be the greatest game in the last century in the National Football League. But the Bills end up pulling away big time. Why was that? What happened?
Well, first of all, the Bills are playing outstanding right now. You know, we haven't seen them in a couple of different facets play like this. Number one, they have like a downhill running attack now. You know, I think the guards have helped. I think some of the running backs they've added have helped, but they have a physicality to their offense that they've been lacking with Josh Allen. And then secondly, they're better on defense. Now, how much of that's having Micah Hyde? How much of that is Bernard at linebacker instead of Tremaine Edmonds? You know, I certainly think you got to give some of that credit to Sean McDermott, who's calling the plays defensively, but they are definitely better on defense than they've been the last couple of years.
Eagles beat the Commanders in overtime, now 4-0. What did you like, and I saw what you tweeted about this gentleman, but what did you like about the way Jalen Hurts played?
Well, I just think he threw the ball better than he had all year, was more decisive throwing the ball, and I think part of that was scheme, right? You know, the first few games, they got a lot of exotic schemes. The Commanders were not as exotic, and as a result, Hurts was able to identify a little bit faster and quicker what he wanted to do with the football, got the ball out faster, was accurate for the most part. And so I thought that was highly encouraging because the Eagles feel pretty good about their defense, pretty good about their running game. The passing game was the one thing that was still, lacking a little bit. So for him to come out and play that well, I think really, really encouraging for the Eagles moving forward because now they kind of have every element working. Although, look, the defense didn't play as great. But isn't that a good team? You don't have every unit. I mean, if all the units for the Eagles are playing great at the same time, nobody's beating them. But they're still winning even when one thing seems like it's missing every week.
Ross, thanks for doing this. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds great. See you guys.